everyone, welcome to Murphy's Garden, and you join me surrounded by a bit of a mess really, lots of bamboos, and today I'm going to be getting on with the staking, which I said I would do a video on. We did a video a few weeks ago all about preparing the perennial borders for the season ahead, which we've done. We've mulched, we've split perennials, and now is the time. It's now mid-April and it's a really good time to stake. If you do it now, then the plants just naturally grow through all the supports and they don't look kind of trussed up and, you know, unnatural looking. They grow very naturally. So I really recommend doing it now. Once the plants are flowering, like say your delphinium is in flower, it's very difficult to stake it effectively. Far better to stake very low down and let the plants grow through. And if you tie it like a delphinium to a bamboo, what tends to happen when the wind blows, it snaps at the point at which it's being tied. So you're far better to tie it to put the support in very low down. And what that does is it allows some movement in the plant, but it will just buff it up against the supports and stop it being bent right over. So that's the principle. There's lots of ways you can do this. There are various supports. You will all have seen these hooked supports. You can get these, you can buy these, you can get a blacksmith to make you some of these. They're quite good for certain plants. This would obviously be for a very big clump. I use this for the eupatorium, which is a big clump. But if you haven't got things like that, the other thing that you can buy, which you'll see just behind me here on this peony, is a kind of it's a circular one which allows the plants to grow through. That works really well. Peonies are very heavy flower heads, so if you don't put supports in, then you really do find that they droop and or break, worse still break. So for that reason, it's a good idea to get those in early. I have put my peony supports in. I put those in a couple of weeks ago and they're already growing through the supports. Now, if you don't want to buy, or you haven't got the budget to buy lots of supports, or you've got loads of plants, as I have, and it's not really practical to buy supports for every single plant. And also what I find is, like with these ones for the peony, that's fine when it's in a kind of distinct clump, but when you've got like a meandering ball of something that kind of is an irregular shape, then that just doesn't work. I have got these, which I've just acquired this year actually, and they seem quite good because you can interlink them, you see, like that, and you can make it the shape of whatever the clump is. You can make them to the correct size. They are a bit of a fiddle actually, and I can honestly say that I personally think the best and easiest way of all is just to use bamboos and then like a kind of cat's cradle effect with some string. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you other ways, but the main way I use is to get some string. You'll need a ball of string. Try and not lose it, as I often do. I lose it in a clump of perennials and find it the following autumn when I'm cutting back. But so you need some string, you need some scissors. What else do you need? You need a mallet just to knock the bamboos in. And initially when you've done it, you'll think, oh my gosh, I've just ruined the garden. It looks really untidy, it looks messy. But honestly, in a few weeks' time, all the perennials will grow through the structures that you've put in and you won't even notice them. But you'll have the benefit of knowing that on a windy day, hopefully your plants will withstand the wind. So let's get on with things and make a start. So what kind of things do you need to stake? So here you can see some campanula. That will get quite tall, so I'm going to put some stakes on that. There's also some monk's hood, and further into the border, I don't know if you can see, there's some lupins. Lupins are really quite top heavy and they definitely need some support. I don't bother with things like sedum, which is over there, but what I would do with the sedum is do a bit of the Chelsea chop on that a bit later on. I'll do that next month. But for things like delphiniums, definitely do it. I probably won't with the irises. Eupatorium I will, because that sometimes I have split it, so splitting plants as well will stop them getting too floppy as well. So that's also a good idea if you've got very healthy, strong rooted plants. So again, mulching will help the plants form good roots and make them more steady and less likely to fall over. And this is a picture gallery of some of the perennials that we have growing in our garden that benefit from being staked. And this is not an exclusive list by any means. And if you've got a sheltered garden, you may get away without staking. Also, here are some annuals that benefit from staking too, most of which have large flower heads or get particularly tall. And also think about staking as you go through the season. Things like dahlias, which are notorious for having quite large flower heads and can get quite heavy, particularly when it's been raining. So probably best if I just demonstrate what I do. So that's that clump of campanula, and this is what it will look like when it's in flower in a few months' time. So next I'm going to do it on some monkshood. So monkshood, or aconitum as it's also called, is quite a tall spire-like flower. It gets quite tall, not unlike delphiniums, and they've got this deep purple colour. They formed quite a sprawling kind of clump in my border, and so the difficulty is if you're trying to do it with the kind of bought stakes, it's never the right size. So the advantage of doing it with bamboos is that you can make it to any shape you like. So it's really important to bang the bamboos in really, really firmly, and you don't need very high bamboos. You just want them quite low down, because when the wind blows, you still want the plants to be able to move about a little bit. They will still move, but you want the low down support to stop them being buffeted around too much and snapping. And once you've got the bamboos in really firmly, then just tie some string onto the first bamboo, nice and firmly. And then I tend to go right round the outside of the clump, winding it round and round the bamboos, a bit like that game Cat's Cradle that we used to play when we were kids. Go round and round, and then once you've gone round the outside of the clump, then go through the middle and make some crisscrossy shapes across the middle of the clump, and that will mean that the stems really can't bend much at all in the wind. And if you've done one clump and you've done, then you come on to do the next clump, you can then start to use the other stakes from the previous clump. So you can, go across it. So it becomes easier and easier the more you do. And you'll find that most of the border has got some support in it. So then when you come to have like things like alliums growing through, there's generally a little bit of support for them as well. And also when you come to plant your annuals like the cosmos and zinnias and things later on, they can grow through that support as well. So it becomes easier and easier the more you do, and it will look a little bit unsightly to begin with, but in a few weeks' time you really don't notice it at all. So in the case of this lupin, this is quite a big clump of lupins, and I find these are quite good. The problem with them, I do find that all of these bought ones, they do tend to get a bit bent over time, and when they hit a few stones and things. So and just push them in. This one's a bit bent. Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's good. So we're covering most of the clump, but what I sometimes do, just because I do still have a tendency, they do still have a tendency to collapse. So sometimes I just put a bit of string on here as well and do a bit of the cat's cradle through the support as well. So you can actually add a little bit of extra support in the middle just by joining it together. So I go across like this, just wind it in a bit, go across like that, just so it's got a bit of extra hold on it in the middle, and it will grow really nicely through this support over the coming months. Just go around there like that. It's very lush, good growth because we've had all this rain. and everything's really going for it. In the next few days we're going to have higher temperatures and a lot more sunshine, so it's a good time to do it now. Just catch it before everything gets too big, and then I'll just tie it onto there. You don't have to do this, but it's just belt and braces. And as I said to you before, this is a very, very windy garden, and I have learnt from bitter experience that everything gets trampled and flattened by the wind if I'm not careful. So that's using the half moon supports. Another type of support that you can buy are these interlinking metal things with little hoops at the end that you can just hoop in, and the advantage of these is that you can form different shapes. The disadvantage was is that I find that they had a tendency to pop out, and I had to actually use a bit of string to tie them together. And here's another type of support that you can buy, but these are only any use on a single plant. So here we've got it with just quite a small delphinium, so that will grow through and provide a bit of support, but as soon as the clump gets bigger it's of no use. And this is another way I stake delphiniums as well. And for a bigger clump of delphiniums, I've got it growing through hooped supports and also some string. And here we've got quite a large clump of, I've always called it Cephalaria, but I think it's actually pronounced Cephalaria giganteum, which is a type of scabious, and it gets really, really tall. So this one definitely will need a bit of staking. So I'm going to do what I did before, where I just put stakes all the way around it. And when you've got something that's really tall, you can do low down supports like this, and then go higher and higher. So you start off, do a run round quite low, and then do another run round a bit higher, and that will just give it extra support. And you can pinch some other supports that you've put on. This is the monk's hood support, so you can utilise some of the ones you've already done, and then it gets easier and easier as the more you do. The other thing you can do if you're planting annuals, particularly like in a cutting garden, is you can use some netting, which you just place over the whole clump. I had contemplated doing that in the perennial border, but then I think I might have a problem when it comes to picking things and for weeding as well, so I've opted not to do that. So these very large hoops, in some ways they're not that much use, they don't provide that much support, but on something which is very big, this is Eupatorium, it's hard to believe it will get so big. It's just coming through the soil now, but it gets to sort of this height. So what I'll do is I'll just put this support in now. It's quite early, you can leave this one and do it later, but I may as well as I'm doing them all. So this is to stop it going onto the path. Oh gosh. Oh, that's better. Oh, yeah, that'll do. And then what I'll do as well, probably add some more bamboos like I did before, but also just put a few little bits of support of string further down, so that will just add a bit of support here as well. So I'll do that, and then I'll add some more bamboos to the rest of the clump as well. So I'm done in these borders, and I guess it looks a bit messy and chaotic really, but soon you won't notice any of these stakes. And that's why timing is everything. So if you do it too early, then you've got the ugliness of the stakes, but if you do it too late, then the plants, you're trying to do it retrospectively, and it's always much harder. So you can see here that like things like the Achillea and the monk's hood and the salvia at the front doesn't need much support, but I've just put little supports in. That's Murphy, and just pan round here. And this one's got a lot of supports, and I've got alliums poking through all the supports as well. I wouldn't individually stake those, but they will benefit from the string that's been put up for the other perennials. They'll use that as well themselves for a little bit of extra support. So we've got loads more to do. We've got the big borders up the top, the big perennial borders up there, and there's lots of delphiniums in there. But that's the principle of what I do to keep all my plants hopefully standing throughout the summer season. And thank you very much for watching. Hope you found that helpful, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.